Hi my little angels, it's me, Angel Hill. Today's video, I'm going to be doing probably one of my favorite video formats in the world, a video essay. I saw a comment on my last video saying that I should do a video talking about my interests because they said that I have a lot of media knowledge and I have a lot of random interests, which is very true. And so I was like, what would I do? What would I do? And I'm like, oh, video essay. I love video essays. Video essays like my favorite thing in the world. I'm just sitting there on my phone and then I'm like listening to a video essay or I'm like watching it actively and like really taking it in. My favorite video essayer is Quentin Reviews. He does a lot of videos on like Disney Channel and Nickelodeon shows. All of, the shows on Nick and Disney that are problematic, like Victorious and iCarly. And they're interesting. I did watch a 5-hour video essay of Victorious. There's also a few others, like, I forgot her name, but she's the Chronically Online girl who talks about chronically online shit. She's great. It's not gonna be an everyday thing, even though video essays are cool. They seem like a lot of work, and I don't like working myself to the bone. So instead, we're just gonna be chill with it. You can get some water, get some snacks. We're gonna be talking about my interests today, so you can get to know me a little bit more, and I hope you enjoy. How I'm going to do this is I'm going to be talking about each of my interests in 3 separate categories. Number 1 is obviously I'm going to tell you about my interest and how old I was when I got into it. Number 2 is I'm going to tell you how it made me feel then when I was however old I was. And number 3 is how I look at this now, for nostalgia purposes. The interests I'm going to be talking about in this video are very, very vital and important parts of my life. If I had never discovered these, I would not be here today. The interests I will be talking about today in this video are Five Nights at Freddy's, RuPaul's Drag Race, Brandon Rogers, and Queen. I swear to God, they're the most important things in my life, so I'm gonna be very, very passionate when I'm talking about these. Or not. I'm trying to keep this video, short but enjoyable. Never heard that before. So without further ado, let's jump right in to Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's is an indie horror game created by Scott Cawthon. Its first game was released on August 8th, 2014, and picked up success around late 2014 and early 2015. Since its launch 10 years ago, yeah, you heard me right, 10 years ago. That makes me feel so old. It has such a huge fandom, probably one of the biggest fandoms in gaming history. But FNAF as a franchise is not just 12 games. It's also 28 books, a large roster of fan games, and its own freaking movie that came out last year in October. When I found out that this movie was a real thing that you could touch, watch, feel, and breathe, I want you to know I cried. I was in history class. I remember it so well. I was on YouTube and I saw the trailer in my recommended and I started crying. It just felt so full circle. To some, Five Nights at Freddy's is just a game, but to me and the millions of losers who dedicate their time making up theories, code our own games, draw our own fan art, or wait till the deadline for new content, it's not just a game. It's a fully fledged story. And it's probably one of the first times I've seen a community make a somewhat cohesive timeline for a game as silly as this. While Five Nights at Freddy's was popularized by a lot of different YouTubers, the number 1 YouTuber we all look to when we think of Five Nights at Freddy's is Markiplier. His 3rd most viewed video has 118 million views, and it's his first ever gameplay of Five Nights at Freddy's. If it wasn't for Markiplier, this game wouldn't be popular. And honestly, in my opinion, if it wasn't for Five Nights at Freddy's, Markiplier wouldn't be that popular either. He wouldn't have his own shows, he wouldn't have Iron Lung, he wouldn't have what he has right now, in my opinion, if it wasn't for this game. And it's the same with MatPat. If MatPat didn't come in to help make this story with his fans and basically everybody, I don't think this game would go as far as it has now. Five Nights at Freddy's could not have come out at such a perfect time, because a lot of the games that people were playing were a lot of free roam games, like Resident Evil, Bloodborne, Until Dawn, all that good stuff. In these games, you could roam wherever you want, and you could make your own choices. In Five Nights at Freddy's, you couldn't go anywhere, and the only choice you had was either to sit there and die or actually be strategic with your game while still sitting there. The only thing you could do is flip your camera up to check the animatronics, close the doors, turn on the lights to check if anybody's outside, and bada boom. That's such a good game because it's original and nothing anyone had seen before. Now, before I talk about how this game is personal to me, I'm just gonna go through the basis of the actual game. So Again, FNAF is a horror game. You sit there, you sit still, like you can't do anything, you just can't move, and you're a security guard. Your name in that game is Mike Schmidt, but you're actually Michael Afton. You're going by an alias, and you were hired by this phone guy, who is canonically, I'm pretty sure it's Scott Cawthon. And you're looking at these animatronics. The main animatronics are Freddy Fazbear, Chica the Chicken, Bonnie the Bunny, Foxy the Pirate Fox, and Golden Freddy. And then you have the endos, but who the fuck cares about the endos? And you're just watching them, and the game starts to get creepy. And then they start to move because they're fucking possessed. Yes, they're possessed by the soul of the children that William Afton killed. And if you don't know who William Afton is, he's the father of Michael Afton. And I'm pretty sure Michael Afton is just going around to these pizzerias and just like saying like, "Where's my father?" Again, I know everything about the FNAF timeline, but like, who actually knows the FNAF timeline? It is so convoluted, it's actually not funny. Too Long Didn't Listen. William Afton is the father of Michael Afton, and William Afton is killing all these kids, stuffing them into animatronic suits, and because like no one would check there, obviously, but like they did. And so William Afton's evil. Michael Afton is running around to these pizzerias, like finding evidence and trying to look for his father. And then there's like other characters like Mrs. Afton, who doesn't really get enough recognition. There's Evan, who was introduced in the 4th game. He's Crying Child. That's the victim of the bite of 83. And then Elizabeth, who's actually Baby, who was scooped in FNAF 5. Like this whole they need to go to family therapy or something. Like, why couldn't they just like talk out their feelings? Jesus Christ, Americans. Oh no, actually no, they're not American, they're British. That's the only thing I was mad about in the movie, by the way, is that nobody was British. Just make them accent accurate, please, for me. And then you have other characters like Henry Emily, who's kind of the only good guy except for Michael, who's friends with William Afton, and then he has a daughter named Charlotte, who's actually the marionette, who was killed by William Afton the second game for some fucking stupid reason. There's other characters like Vanessa, Gregory, who is pretty much Evan, or Crying Child, but I don't want to get into it. You can watch the 8-hour video essay that is on YouTube right now talking about FNAF lore. Now that the logistics and boring stuff are out of the way, I'm going to be talking about how I got into this game. I was 8 or 9 when Five Nights at Freddy's came out. I was not monitored as a kid. Nothing was restricted. YouTube was my domain. I actually did not start FNAF watching, Markiplier, as probably half the population did. I actually started out with Eyes Cupquake because she was like my favorite YouTuber ever growing up, and then from there I got into like Jacksepticeye and Markiplier, and right away I was hooked. I used to watch like Tony Cry Night and Zero to Zero. I used to just watch a bunch of like SFM like FNAF animations and stuff. It was so good. It was just animations and waiting till the next game came out. Little 8-9-year-old Angel was hooked. It was perfect for them. I wasn't typically a fan of gore. I'm a liar. I was a fan of gore. I was, a fan of Yandere Simulator as well, but I don't want to talk about that because that's just another can of worms that I don't want to open. Yandere Simulator, My Little Pony, disgusting fandom, so I was pretty hooked on that. The thing with Five Nights at Freddy's is that it's not gory. It's just creepy. Like, one of the nightmares that I vividly remember is of Five Nights at Freddy's, but I'm not gonna get into it. I'm lying. I am. I was 8 years old, and the dream was I was Mike Schmidt, and I'm in that office, and then the lights go down, and then Freddy, he walks in, and he tells me that he's gonna kill me, and then I open my eyes, and I'm in my parents' bedroom. I was like, sweating. But you know what? I've gotten over my fear of Five Nights at Freddy's. The older I got, the more hooked on Five Nights at Freddy's I got, because almost every year a new game was coming out, so that was always all I would be looking forward to, is sitting down, watching like either Eyes Cupquake, Jacksepticeye, or Markiplier play the newest FNAF game, and then I would watch MatPat and see what he had to say about it, and it was perfect, and I wish I could go back. The way it made me feel then, because FNAF again is such an original concept, it's something I'd never seen before, so I was starstruck. I loved it. I was obsessed with it. That was the only thing I wanted to talk about to anybody. If you didn't like FNAF, then you were wasting my time. I know, little 9-year-old me was egotistical. I still am. I'm pretty sure the last game I did enjoy was Security Breach. In my opinion, they definitely should have probably ended it at Ultimate Custom Night. It felt just like a perfect ending, like right after Pizzeria Simulator. You know, Henry burns down the pizzeria and everybody, you know, gets freed except for William. So Ultimate Custom Night is his own hell. Why wouldn't you just end it there? And yes, I did like Security Breach. I watched Corix Kenshin play it and it was amazing. I love Corix Kenshin so much. He's like my favorite YouTuber ever. I don't know where he is again. He's probably on another 9-month hiatus. He's probably getting a girl pregnant or he's pregnant. I don't know. So the older I got, even though I was loving FNAF, I started to drift away from it. Like no one seemed to care about the game anymore. The fandom was booming at Security Breach and I was too. I was so happy that this game was out because it was like, you know, the first free roam game ever, but the only thing I didn't like about it is it wasn't 5 nights. You've taken away the entire point of this game and made it into one night. It loses its value of being a game where you couldn't go anywhere unless it was like in the 8-bit cutscenes. Like that was really the only thing we got. And yes, it's great that we got a free roam game. It doesn't feel the same. And you can tell me, oh, but Angel, like why don't you just go back and play the old game? I do. I watch him. Like it feels oddly sacrilegious watching new Markiplier play Five Nights at Freddy's because it's not the same excitement anymore. Old Markiplier, yes, he was younger. He used to yell at literally everything. I'm a sentimental person. Like you can't really get mad at me for wanting that old feeling back. And it's not that I hate Markiplier. I love him. He's the reason why I'm even still here in the first place. It just didn't feel the same. So the way I look back at Five Nights at Freddy's now, before I talk about the movie, it's probably one of the greatest things ever created. It's my favorite thing in the world. And if you do ask me, hey, can you tell me about the FNAF timeline? I will sit you down and try and tell you about it. I will stumble over my words being like, and then there's, wait, no, baby, oh, no, wait, and like I will get confused. In my head, it's all there. Okay, this was such a perfect game, especially for me. I was a weird kid in school, so Five Nights at Freddy's being there was just like, that was perfect. And then meeting people who also like Five Nights at Freddy's during that time was amazing to me. Now onto the movie. I watched the movie, I went in cosplay, as you can see here. I went with my best friend. She went as Toy Chica, I went as Toy Bonnie because he's my favorite character. And her boyfriend, he didn't go as a character, but he was wearing this really cool button up with like graffiti all over it, and he looked like what the FNAF 3 phone guy sounds like, so that's a plus. I did like the movie. I did. I gave it like a 8 out of 10. I brought like a notebook. It wasn't disappointing, but it also wasn't like, oh my god, this is the movie of the year. Like, no. The movie of the year for me was definitely Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Oh yeah, I totally would talk about Marvel, but girl, I've already established too much. No, maybe I'll do a part 2 of talking about my other interests, because I have a lot. And it's kind of disgustingly crazy. I did enjoy the movie. It was a really good movie. It's just not in my top 5 or top 3. I don't care if it was good or bad. I'm just happy that it's there because it felt like such a full circle experience. Like I remember when I was 9, it had been announced that there had been a FNAF movie in the works. And this was when like FNAF 2 or 3 was already out. I've been waiting 8 years for this. And then we finally get it and it's like decent. Like of course I'm gonna be happy. I don't care if it was like literal dookie like Madam Web or it was the best thing ever like Endgame. I'm just gonna enjoy that it's there. So in conclusion, Five Nights at Freddy's is probably one of the best games ever made because it's such an original concept. Scott Cawthon, genius. I'm very excited for the fact that a second and a third FNAF movie is probably in the works right now. Yes, I want to see Josh Hutcherson on my screen again. Yes, I want to see Matthew Lillard on my screen again. Yes, I want to see Elizabeth Leo and Piper Rubio and everyone else on my screen again. They're so good at what they do. I'm always going to be a FNAF fan at heart. Even if like the newer games aren't really up to my, standards. Like if FNAF has no fans, I'm dead. If FNAF has one fan, it's me. And if FNAF has a million fans, I'm the number 1 fan. I also don't know how I didn't manage to talk about this. I'm editing right now. The music? The music. Not even just The Living Tombstone. Madame Macabre and DA Games and Mando Pony and JT Music. Everybody, oh my god. Welcome to Freddy's is probably like the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan song ever, and Break My Mind and Game Over by DA Games are so good. Like I try to act so dark and mysterious knowing that The Living Tombstone is playing in my headphones. Now that the FNAF segment is over, let's move on to RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul's Drag Race is a reality television show that was created in 2009 and is still airing to this day. The video playing before you is the season 16 trailer, and it's currently airing. I think we're at like episode 8 or 9 right now. It's an insane season and it makes me so mad, but I love it. Now, if you've never heard what Drag Race is, or maybe you have, you just don't know how it works, I'm going to explain it to you. RuPaul's Drag Race is a competition reality TV show where drag queens around the world come to compete for a cash prize and to make a name for themselves. The first season of Drag Race was founded by WoW Presents and was filmed in a basement in Burbank. The first few seasons were basically a parody of America's Next Top Model, and what they wanted to do is make themselves look a lot more professional than they actually did. So they slapped on a filter. It looks like they dug their hand in Vaseline, rubbed it on the camera lens, and called it a day. So it gave the first season a very weary, gross, blurry feeling. While the first season of Drag Race was pretty iconic, it didn't pick up too much traction till later seasons, like maybe season 4 to 6, but that didn't stop RuPaul, who had the same wig and a dream. Each year, Drag Race would release a new season, and the more content that was out, the more fans that Drag Race had. In my opinion, I think the season that really made Drag Race popular was season 6. Season 6 is an incredibly iconic season, having so many iconic moments, iconic drag queens, and I don't know, it's just so iconic. It's probably one of my favorite seasons ever. Since its initial release, Drag Race has been nominated for so many different awards. Just this year, it was nominated for an Emmy for Reality Competition Program. As of now, RuPaul is one of the most awarded hosts in Emmy history, and also holds the record for most wins by a person of color. If that isn't iconic to you, then I don't know what is. Love or hate RuPaul, you can't deny that this man is a trailblazer. No one had seen drag queens on mainstream TV like this before, and who do we have to thank for that? RuPaul. But Drag Race as a show isn't strictly American. It's also Canadian, British, Australian, French, Mexican, Swedish, Filipino, Brazilian, everything. It's everything. It's so international now. And American queens don't compete against just American queens. Versus the World is a series where queens who have competed on Drag Race internationally represent their country and compete as well. But Drag Race isn't RuPaul's only achievement. He's the first drag queen to land and star in a national cosmetics campaign, which was the MAC AIDS Fund. The first drag queen to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The first openly gay national TV talk show host in the United States. The first drag queen to host a reality TV show. The first drag queen to win a Primetime Emmy Award. And the first drag queen to be named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. But RuPaul wasn't always a professional drag queen. If you didn't know this, RuPaul was actually one of the OG club kids. And if you don't know what a club kid is, they're the rebels of the 80s and 90s who dominated the underground club scene. They wore insane and crazy outfits, they were political as fuck, they were non-conformist, and a lot of people thought they only cared about sex and drugs, but in reality, all they wanted to do was just spread their art through clothing and makeup. And thank God they still exist today. Love or hate RuPaul, you literally cannot deny his influence. When I was around maybe 10 or 11 years old, I started watching Drag Race. I started with season 2 and I worked my way up to season 9 because that was all that was out at the time. And I freaking loved it. I wanted to be a drag queen so bad, but because I identified as a girl at the time, I know I couldn't do it. Then I learned girls can be drag queens. And then as I got older, I realized everyone can be a drag queen. As I'm recording this, I'm 17 years old, and the legal age to go to clubs in Australia is 18. So you know by the time I turn 18, I'm gonna try and start performing in clubs. I wasn't only a Drag Race superfan, I was a RuPaul superfan. When I found out his husband was from Perth, which is where I'm from, I freaked out. I was so happy. I also grew up watching a lot of Nelson Sullivan videos, who was a gay videographer in Manhattan who filmed a lot of the art and the club scene there. He documented queer life in Manhattan not only as himself as a gay man, but also the eccentric and tragic lives of other drag queens and performers. When I tell you that I'm a RuPaul superfan, I'm not kidding. I would listen to a lot of RuPaul's music and a lot of the Drag Race music unironically. One of my favorite songs is probably Main Event. That song makes me feel so I ascend every time I listen to it. I would always listen to a lot of the songs from Drag Race as well, like Shade the Rusical, that one Candy song that they did for season 5. Like I said, I started out with season 2, but the seasons that I lived through were season 10 and All Stars 3. Season 10 gets a pretty bad rep because it was a weird season in my opinion. Yes, that mental health challenge was very, very weird and very strange. But season 10 has a very special place in my heart. So does All Stars 3. because season 2 through 9 were already established, as well as All Stars 1 and 2. But these were seasons that like were actively coming out. I was living for it. Ultimately though, my favorite seasons are 2, 3, and 6. They're the best seasons in my opinion, but it was because of Untucked. Season 6 was the last season where we had all the lounges and stuff and like all the overly dramatic editing. Oh, I just loved it. I just loved it so much. I was very lucky that my parents were very supportive of me watching the show. I grew up with a lot of queer media like Glee, Drag Race, other stuff that I can't really remember. Monster High was one of them. I was very grateful to watch that show at a young age. I also have a lot of queer family members. I swear being gay is hereditary or something. If you ask me what's my favorite TV show, the answer will always be RuPaul's Drag Race. There's nothing that can top it. Nothing. Not even like the shows that I have watched like 17 times. Nothing can top Drag Race. It also opened my personality a lot. I was a very weird kid in school. While I was weird, like I was fine being weird, I didn't have a lot of confidence. Drag Race was my confidence. And it told me, you're weird? All right, cool. Be weirder. And so that's what I did. It also opened my personality a lot. I was surprisingly a very shy kid, but once I started watching, I started acting a lot more queer and a lot more loud and brash as I got older, and now like I don't have any fears when I'm in public. I'm just me, and if anyone has a problem with it, then they can just simply walk away. I've also made a lot of friends because of this show. 2 of my closest friends who I watch Drag Race with, Liam and Kristen. If you're watching this, hi. Oh my god, hi. Me and Liam watch Drag Race every single week. Currently we're watching season 16 and we watched it last week with Kristen, and it was definitely something, girl.
No. Salute you. Congratulations. Ladies, I've made my decision. Maya, Shantae, you stay. You may join the other girls.
But not everyone got it. I would get called cringe for acting too flamboyant or whatnot, and I would also get stares not only from my friends but from my family. More like my immediate family. Like my dad was not very on board with it, but all he wants me to do is be happy, so that's a plus, I guess. I also followed a lot of like younger drag queens, and by younger I mean people who were my age at the time. One of them being Desmond is Amazing. I love Desmond is Amazing. They're a few years younger than me, but at the time, I was their biggest fan. I even messaged them and they messaged me back. So like Desmond, I don't know if you're ever watching this, but hey girl, hey. And it's so cool now seeing people who were my age at like when I would started watching Drag Race, like 12 or maybe even younger, participating in the art of drag and participating in the art of ballroom as well. It's so cool. It warms my heart. What does make me sad though is the constant drag bans in America, and I do want to quickly talk about it. In Australia, I'm pretty blind on how the government here sees drag. From the way that I see it, they're outperforming. No one cares or anything. No one is demonizing drag queens here, at least not as strongly as America is. It really pains me to see that drag queens are being banned from performing art because people believe that, oh, these drag queens are trying to do weird, nasty stuff to our children. Like, no, what the heck is that? If you think taking your child to drag brunch is gonna turn your child gay, maybe you shouldn't be taking your child to drag brunch. Or maybe you shouldn't be having a kid at all. The only thing on a drag queen's mind is entertaining you and getting money out of your pockets. And I don't think a child has fucking money in their pocket. And what's the problem if a child does see a drag queen performing? I do not understand that. Like I'm actually like flabbergasted right now. If you don't want a gay child, don't have a child in the first place. Because there's a high chance that your kid's gonna be gay. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But just if you're so worried that you're gonna have a queer child, don't have one in the first place because you're not ready to be a parent. That little rant is over. So I'm so sorry, but I had to say it. The way I look back on Drag Race now, it was probably one of the best things ever to happen to me. I'm very grateful because there were times as, you know, as a kid growing into like a little teenager that I did not want to be gay. I did not want to be trans or anything. But here I am as a very proud non-binary person with their own YouTube channel and their own following on Instagram and TikTok and whatnot. Very small following, but I'm glad that I have it. And I'm very glad I was able to push past people telling me I can't be who I want to be. And I'm pretty sure that if I did not have Drag Race, I would not be here in the first place. Drag queens are one of the coolest people in the world. They're non-conformists, and being in drag is really a political statement of its own. But with drag also comes an intense history. Like a lot of drag culture comes from the ballroom scene. If you don't know what the ballroom scene is, please watch Paris is Burning, please watch Pose. The ballroom scene was created by Black and Latina trans women. It was a place where they felt like they could belong. And they did. The art of voguing, which was the style of dance that was popular in a lot of ballroom, was then made mainstream. Thank you, Madonna. And ballroom is still popular today. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone has seen at least one ballroom clip. My favorite is probably the Sailor Moon ballroom clip, or the one where that person, is their name Michaela? I don't remember. They jump over Honey Balenciaga. Oh my god, iconic. Or the Halloween ball. The Halloween ball. These are pretty popular ballroom moments. When I started All Stars 3, when I was, I'm gonna say maybe 12 or 11, that one performance that Aja did where she jumped from there. She gonna jump from there? And she did. I would recreate that in my living room almost every day because I was so obsessed with it. Not only was drag popular in the 80s, it's also deeply rooted in a lot of different cultures. Chinese culture, Mayan culture, Hawaiian culture. Even during Shakespearean times where women weren't allowed to act for some stupid reason, men would act as women. They would dress up in women's clothing, do the da-da-da-da-do. You know, Romeo and Juliet, where art thou? Who knows? Drag and gender as a whole is rooted in every single culture ever. If you would like to hear more about gender in culture from someone who actually knows what they're talking about, you should definitely look it up. There's Sasha Colby. She's the first Hawaiian queen to ever win RuPaul's Drag Race. She's trans, she's amazing, she's a goddess, she's everything to me. It's just so interesting, and it's really, really worth educating yourself about. I guess the way I look at Drag Race now is it's definitely found itself. Even as rocky seasons like season 13 and 14, where they kind of lost their format for a bit. It's still a really good show that I recommend you watch. I follow a lot of YouTubers whose content is Drag Race related. My favorite being Bussy Queen and Jack Fed. They're just so good at what they do. Bussy Queen does a lot of recaps of Drag Race episodes and talks about Drag Race drama. And Jack Fed is a Naomi Smalls superfan. And Jack Fed is a Naomi Smalls superfan. I'm kidding. Jack Fed actually makes a lot of videos about like Drag Race as a whole, like as a show, and how it impacts itself and its viewers. They're very interesting. Pretty sure I've watched like every single one of his videos. I also really like Drag Detective, who is one of the reasons why I now overanalyze every single detail in Drag Race. What I think of Drag Race season 16 right now is that it's definitely a season. I love it so far. It's turning me into a toxic Drag Race fan, and I don't need that in my life. If you haven't watched the last episode, I'm going to spoil it for you. Plasma went home, and oh yes, she deserved to go home. I was mad. I was so mad. I literally was one of the people being like, if Maya can take her wig off and her shoes off, then Mirage should have stayed because she didn't know the words. And while it was stupid of me to say, I will say this. It's drag queens in a competition. The only worst thing is prison. In conclusion, you should watch RuPaul's Drag Race. This is 17-year-old Angel telling you, and this is also 11-year-old Angel telling you. It's so crazy how I've been watching this show for 8 years and I still don't know who Michelle Visage is. And that brings us to the end of the video. I did say that I was going to talk about Brandon Rogers and Queen, but for my own sanity, I'm going to leave it to a part 2. This video is already almost like 30 minutes from what I can see on my timeline right now. I'm a busy man. So I'm just going to leave it. We're going to do another video for Brandon and Queen. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you liked it. Please tell me what you thought of this kind of format. It's very different for me. Again, I love video essays, and I don't know if I would class this as a video essay, but we're going to just for my sake. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. None of you are going to heaven, and neither am I. This is Angel Hill signing out.